Well, good evening, and thank you for tuning in to the City of Findlay's virtual public meeting on the zoning map update that we have proposed. I'm Mayor Christina Murren. I'm going to be the facilitator of this evening's meeting. A couple of notes, just housekeeping, because I know that we're all still getting used to using Zoom. If you are logged in through your computer, you have both the ability for an open mic as well as a camera. We would encourage everyone just to keep your cameras off. Everyone is currently muted. When we get to the time for a question and answer portion, you can use the chat process, which will send the questions to me and I'll be able to ask those. You can send them throughout the discussion, but we'll have a specific time that we'll address those, as well as at that time, I'll allow folks to be able to unmute themselves. On the screen, hopefully you can see, but we also, for those who are just listening in, we'll go through the information. We're going to start off with going over some frequently asked questions. We have encouraged folks to call in over the last week or so, and so we've accumulated some of the questions that we have been hearing. We're going to go through those at the beginning, and then we're going to dive a little bit deeper into what is zoning, why are the changes proposed, and a little bit more information about how you can all contact us. We understand that each property is a little bit different, and so tonight's conversation is going to be focused on general zoning and frequently asked questions to help everybody kind of understand why we're doing this. But then once we get into more specifics, we would encourage you to actually schedule a time to come and meet with us so that we can talk about your individual property. I'm going to stop everybody's videos. And then, so this evening, Matt Cordonier from Hancock Regional Planning is going to be presenting. Again, I'll be facilitating the conversation. So if you have the ability to submit a question via chat, you can do that throughout, and we'll address those during the question and answer period. Or then later, I will allow folks to be able to unmute yourselves to ask questions. So we will go ahead and get started. I am going to transition control over to Matt. So just give me one moment. All right, Matt, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. And I'm going to share my screen here and get the PowerPoint started. So I'm Matt Cordonier. I'm the director of Hancock Regional Planning. This project is something that our office has been working on for the last couple of years. There we go. So we are proposing to change about 7,000 parcels in the city of Findlay. And we're proposing those parcels to eliminate some hurdles, some issues that property owners are having. So with that, I'll go ahead and start the presentation. So we're going to go through some frequently asked questions, why the map needs updated. We're going to go through a couple scenarios, and then we'll answer any questions that folks have, as the mayor mentioned. So frequently asked questions. As you can imagine, we sent out 7,000 postcards about 10 days ago. And so we sent them to every property owner whose property is proposed to be changed. And since then, we've received a lot of phone calls, which is great. And me and my staff, we've tried to answer the questions as best we could and try to make the property owners understand why we're proposing those changes. So as we've taken probably 300 or 400 phone calls, we kept seeing the same questions arising over and over again. So I thought I'd discuss some of those tonight. The first question is my zoning changing? So there's about 20,000 parcels in the city of Findlay, and we're proposing to change about 7,000. So that's about 1/3 of all properties. But we only sent postcards to the properties whose zoning is proposed to be changed. You can also visit the City of Findlay website to check the proposed zoning for any parcel in the city. And we will show you later on in the presentation where that is at. The next question that we receive very often is, will this change the size of my property? The city of Findlay is not changing the size of your property. The terms large, medium, or small lot refer to zoning classifications. So just to be clear, your property will stay the same size. Your property lines will stay in the same location. We're merely proposing to change the standards that apply to that lot. The next question is, will this change my property taxes? This is the most often asked question, and the answer is no. The county auditor taxes your property based upon how it's used. And in fact, if you contacted the county auditor and asked them what your zoning is, they would not know. They don't use the zoning to assess property taxes. Next question, is this going to change my property value? In most cases, this should not lower your property value. However, there may be some cases where it does. The city has discussed this question with real estate agents and appraisers from Findlay, Ohio, and they responded that having the incorrect zoning will have the most negative effect. Next question, who should I contact if I have questions or concerns? So we would like you to contact my office, Hancock Regional Planning Commission. The phone number is 419-424-7094, or you can email us at hrpc@Findlay, spelled out, Ohio, spelled out.com. I encourage, if you or friends or someone on your street has concerns, please have them contact us and we can walk them through the specifics on why we propose to change their zoning. Another question, a really important question, am I being forced to change my zoning? The answer is no. The city believes these changes are beneficial to you as a property owner. However, the final decision lies with the property owner. Simply complete the zoning opt-out form and return it to the city. So just to be clear, any of the 7,000 people that we're proposing to change their zoning, if they choose not to have the zoning changed, simply complete the opt-out form and return it to HRPC by October 1st. So if your property was proposed to be rezoned from C2 to R3, if you fill out the opt-out form, it will remain C2. So I think this is a really great feature of the code update, and I'm very happy that the mayor and I gave the ultimate decision to the property owners. So now we're going to talk, so we've completed the frequently asked questions, and now we're going to talk about just what zoning is. I know we get a lot of phone calls and folks are a little bit concerned or don't understand what their zoning is. And zoning is the regulation of the use of land and buildings. Areas of land are divided into zones within which various uses are permitted. The purpose of zoning is to preserve the health, safety, and welfare of the community. You know, zoning is used to, for example, if there's a large factory, you know, zoning will generally prevent the factory from building right next to single family homes. You know, we're always looking at compatible uses. We don't want a Walmart to be built right next to a subdivision. So it really helps us organize the city, and by doing so, it helps us protect property values. The city of Findlay has 15 different zoning classifications, most properties being zoned within the residential or commercial categories. So on the screen, there's a summary of the 3 residential zoning districts. There's R1 large lot, R2 medium lot, and R3 small lot. And you'll see that there are different setbacks. So the front setback is 30 feet in R1, 25 feet in R2, and 10 feet in R3. What we One of the reasons that we're updating the map is, let's say, for example, in an older part of town, someone has a very small lot, but they're zoned R1. They have larger setbacks. They cannot cover as much of their lot, and that causes them problems if they want to put a sunroom on or do something like that. So in general, when you're looking at R1 and R2, they're pretty similar other than lot size. When you jump to R3, the setbacks really get smaller, and it's a increased change from R1 and R2. The next slide, we have 3 commercial districts. C1 is local commercial. That would be for like local shops and things like that, hair salons. C2 is general commercial. You think of Tiffin Avenue or Trenton Avenue, where your Walmarts, your Myers are. And then we have downtown commercial, which is designed for no setbacks because of the dense nature of downtown development. The City of Findlay zoning map needs updated to correct inconsistencies between the existing use of properties and their current zoning classification. These inconsistencies cause limitations on property utilization and cost property owners time and money. The City of Findlay adopted zoning in 1956, and the map has had limited changes since then. When your zoning does not match the proper size of your property, it creates more restrictive setbacks, which limit how you may utilize your property. To be able to correct these issues, you have to seek a zoning amendment or a variance. A zoning amendment takes 3 months and costs $250, and the variance takes 1 month and costs $250. So now these are real life scenarios using real lots. The names have been changed for privacy, but these are real life examples. So I'm going to go through 2 examples here real quick. So scenario 1, Mr. Hancock lives on 19th Street in a single family home. He wants to construct a sunroom on the back of his house and put a shed in his backyard. Mr. Hancock's lot is 45 feet wide by 100 feet deep. His house is 1,700 square feet, and his lot is zoned large lot residential R1. Unfortunately, because his lot is zoned large lot residential, he cannot construct the sunroom or shed because his house already exceeds the maximum lot coverage. In order to construct the sunroom and shed, Mr. Hancock needs to seek a variance or get his property rezoned to small lot residential R3. With the new zoning map update, Mr. Hancock's home would be rezoned from large lot residential to small lot residential based upon the size of his lot. This is appropriate because his property meets all the small lot standards, but none of the large lot standards. The map update would allow Mr. Hancock to construct the sunroom and shed without the need of a variance or rezoning. Scenario 2, Mrs. Flagg lives on a quiet residential street and is looking to sell her home. Unfortunately, the buyer interested in purchasing it is not able to secure lending because the property is zoned commercial. Ms. Flagg purchased the home 20 years ago and did not realize that her zoning could cause issues with mortgage companies. Since the 2007 economic downturn, also known as the housing bubble, we've noticed mortgage companies increasingly contacting the city to do research on properties, and they request a zoning letter. In this case, a residential house and commercial, the zoning letter to the bank that the city has to write is that her house is legal non-conforming, which means it's a legal use. It can continue to be used for the next 50, 100 years, but it's non-conforming to the zoning code. Sometimes this puts a red flag up to banks, and some banks will refuse to put a loan for that property until the zoning is fixed. So unfortunately, Mrs. Flagg will need to rezone the property from commercial to residential in order to satisfy the potential buyer's mortgage company. The rezoning will cost her $250 and will take approximately 3 months. This delay may cause the potential buyer to not purchase the home. This is a situation we see once a month, sometimes 2 or 3 times a month. And by updating the map, this is something that we hope we can eliminate for property owners. With the zoning map update, Mrs. Flagg's property would be rezoned from general commercial to small lot residential. This is determined based off of the current use, residential, and lot size. With the correct zoning in place, she will not have a conflict with the mortgage companies. So on your screen is an actual section of the city. It's Crawford Street's to the north, Liberty is to the west. And so currently today, it's all red, which is C2. That can be problematic. C2 has really large setbacks. C2 is really designed for your large developments like Walmart's and Myers, and et cetera. So this is what it's zoned today. And now I'm going to show you what it's proposed to be zoned. So the map looks a little different. It's gone from the bright red of C2. On the left-hand side, you'll see some pink property lots. And these were converted, we're proposing to convert them from C2 to C1. These small commercial lots will benefit from the smaller lot standards in the C1 district. In the middle of the map, you see the orange properties. That's R3 residential. And remember, before they were zoned C2. So we converted from C2 to small lot residential because the actual use of the property is residential. Small lot residential was chosen because of the size of the property. The property owner will benefit when trying to sell or expand their house in the future. And lastly, on the bottom right-hand corner, that is the Finley Playhouse, where they have the shows and things. So that's a light purple color, and we converted it from C2 to C3 downtown zoning. This property is very small and will benefit from the small setbacks and parking standards within the district. The zoning is appropriate because of its close proximity to downtown. Everything to the east of this property is also zoned C3 downtown commercial. So another benefit of the map update, duplex and triplex owners will also see a benefit. Owners of existing duplexes and triplexes will see a benefit from the proposed zoning map update. Many of these structures are legal non-conforming. Again, some banks with the legal non-conforming title will balk at lending on those properties. The city proposes to rezone, and then the beginning of next year, we plan to grant conditional uses to all current duplexes and triplexes that were legally created or grandfathered in. That's the second step, that I'll be initiating a conditional use probably in February or March. And we'll probably have about 850 duplexes and triplexes that were created legally. And we will grant them the conditional use so that when banks call, we don't have to tell them it's legal non-conforming, but we can simply tell them it's legal, and it hopefully will not cause issues for them. So I'm wrapping up my end of the presentation. I just want to encourage anyone with questions. Myself and my 2 coworkers will be happy to look at your own personal property on an individual basis, either by phone or in person, to discuss any issues that you might have. And our website and email is listed up here, but our phone number is 419-424-7094.
Wonderful. Thank you, Matt. I'm going to real quick bring up the City of Findlay website. I just want to reiterate that there is a variety of information if you go to findlayohio.com. on our website, scrolling through there currently, if you click on virtual public meeting, there's information. So I'm just going to go to the parcel search. If you go scrolling through, there is one that looks at the map, and you can, again, look at a version of this presentation. If you have questions, you can also do a search to look at, if you have questions on your property or surrounding properties, you can look at that, as well as there's information that Matt shared regarding the different types of zoning classifications and what those requirements are. So just want to reiterate, those are also available online. At this time, we will go into questions. So we'll start with a couple that we received during the presentation via the chat. And if you have a question to submit, let's go ahead and start with the chat function, because that will allow us to get through some of these. Again, I appreciate Matt talking about the frequently asked questions. And some of the things we have heard from folks is, one, is my lot size actually changing? No, the physical boundaries of your lot are not changing. The amount of property you own is not changing. How it is classified is changing. And again, we're just changing it to meet how it is currently being used. And so we want to make sure that our information is accurate based off of how it is being used and the actual size of the lot, again, to allow more flexibility for folks. So a couple questions that I had come in. One, asking for us to just, again, kind of explain setbacks. So setbacks are when the requirements that you have to follow when building on your property from your property line. So, say we all have our houses and we're 30 feet apart from our neighbor, and our property line is in the middle. So that means we're, 15 feet away. The setback is saying that you cannot build a fence or a deck within a certain distance of that property line. Again, we want to make sure that we are protecting the integrity of the properties and respecting our neighbors and making sure that we're not overdeveloping our properties, but also allowing the most flexibility possible for you to utilize your property. And we have seen a number of folks coming in, especially over the last couple of months, as we've all had a little bit more time to do projects, wanting to build, and we're then restricted because of those setback requirements. So Richard, I hope that answers a little bit more about setbacks.
Mary?
Yeah.
Could I add something to that?
Of course, go ahead, please.
There has been some phone calls I've received, some concern that if we change a person's zoning, then does that somehow affect that they have to move a shed, or they have to tear down their garage? And the answer to that is no. When we change the zoning on a property, anything that exists there today is grandfathered in, meaning that it can legally exist in perpetuity. And the other side note is most of these changes, almost all 7,000 changes, we are not increasing the setbacks. So we are in general decreasing the setbacks. So we're not making it more restrictive, we're making it less restrictive. But again, when we change the zoning, the city will then not force someone to remove a garage or remove a shed. Those things are grandfathered in with the map update. So I just wanted to add that. I had some concerns that people would have to as much as move their house or move their shed or move their garage, and that this will have no effect on that.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, that's a great point. Additionally, again, reiterating, we are doing this because we feel that it is a benefit to the property owners. If you do not believe it's going to be of benefit, please just complete the opt-out form or call us with your specific questions so we can explain why we're making the recommendation. It's hard to answer questions about specific properties. I know I'm getting a couple here. So we'll try to do our best hitting a couple more scenarios and further explaining. But if you want to know your specific property and why we're recommending the change, please call or email us so that we can appropriately address that. So I have a question here from Josh, and he says, our property is currently non-conforming. However, with the changes, we believe it will still be non-conforming. Can this be addressed on a specific case scenario as needed with this change, or will variances still be addressed separately after this? Matt, do you want to talk a little bit about the process that we are planning to do? I guess, I don't know if Josh can say if it is a duplex. I can touch on it. If it is currently non-conforming, in some instances, this will take it into conforming. If it is a duplex and is legal non-conforming, we are currently working to transition these into a classification where that duplex is allowed, and then you will still have to go through a process to get it conforming. But we are planning to just do, again, a form where you pretty much are letting us know that that's how it's currently being utilized, so we can update our records. But there will not be duplexes that are hindered by this. Again, we're just wanting to make sure that it's updated to how it is currently being used. Matt, do you want to add anything on that?
Yeah,
Explain that well?
yeah, I think you did a good job. Without specifics, it's a little difficult. There's several layers of non-conforming. There's non-conforming with like the physical restraints of the property, meaning the setbacks. There's also non-conforming uses. So without knowing that, I will say there are literally thousands of houses that do not conform to the setbacks. And there's nothing that we can do zoning wise reasonably to make all those houses fit the setbacks. And the reason is zoning was adopted in 1957. And in 1957, there were thousands and thousands of houses already built in the city of Findlay. So in general, if it's non-conforming with a setback, that rarely is an issue. There are provisions in the code. If your home burns down, you have 2 years to reestablish it on the existing footprint. After 2 years, you have to meet the zoning standard footprint. But Josh, if you'd like to reach out to our office, I definitely would like to talk with you and try to answer your question with some more specifics.
Josh said thank you. Going up, I know there was a question. Kathy asked, with the example that Matt used on Crawford, is there an overall map of the areas that will be changed? And if so, where can that be viewed? I do not believe we have the overall map currently on the City of Findlay website, but I believe we would be happy to put that out there. Matt, can we get that loaded on there tomorrow?
Yes, we can. What I will do, I will put the current map up, and then there'll be a link to the current map, and then there'll be a link to the proposed map, and that'll be for anyone to inspect. So not a problem, Kathy.
Yep, and I'll warn you, I've seen that document. It's a little hard to zoom in and out of because it's a large PDF, so fair warning, but it'll be out there. All right, we have another question. Let me see if I can find it again. Matt, can you speak real quick, just giving another example? Ron says his lot is going from R2 to R3. What advantages and disadvantages are there for the owner?
So going from R2 to R3, in R2, you can only use 33% of your lot, meaning you can only cover 33% of your lot. In R3, you can cover 50% of your lot. We find that is one of the sticking points for a lot of people with a smaller lot wanting to do some additional development, a garage or a deck. And then some of the side setbacks are 2 feet smaller, and that is oftentimes helpful. So there's not a huge change from R2 to R3 other than the benefits of the lot coverage and the front, rear, and side yard setbacks. One thing to note, so we all see front setbacks 30 feet, 25 feet, 10 feet. In an established neighborhood, um, if let's say there's an empty lot in your neighborhood, they cannot just build 10 feet back when all the other houses are 25 feet back. There's a provision in the code that they must, when filling in an empty lot, they have to meet the average setback of the existing houses on either side. So that provision we put in just before this map update, so that we can keep the streetscape. We don't want to have one house 10 feet back and the rest of the house is 30 feet back. So that's just a side note that I thought I'd bring up. I know you said to do it quickly, Mayor, and I don't do things quickly always. Sorry.
No, that was a great point. Thank you for sharing that. Question from Bill asked, if the current zoning does not allow mobile homes or mobile home parks in a subdivision, and current residents do not want that change, will you agree not to change the zoning ordinance? So certainly I can't speak to all future decisions, but it is not our goal to add additional mobile home parks. That is a separate zoning classification. And at this point, we really don't have any areas in town that would make sense to have as a mobile home district. So at this point, you would not be seeing any additional areas for mobile home development. And that is not our intention, but certainly I can't speak to future administration.
And I'd like to add one thing with that. There was a change to the zoning code in, I believe, 2012. And the change to the code, we wanted to discourage having mobile homes interspersed throughout more traditional single-family home development. So in 2012, the option to put a mobile home into a vacant residential lot was removed. As of now, if you want to, the only option is to do a mobile home park of 5 acres or more. And the idea of that is, I guess the city is open to a mobile home park, but it has to be a kind of master planned, laid out, full development rather than just placing one here and one there. So I just wanted to add that.
Very helpful, thank you. I know we have a question received from an iPhone user that says, what are the benefits from R1 to R2? Again, very similar to any residential transition. It's really just those setback requirements based off of your lot size, and those can be viewed at finleyohio.com. I do have them up currently if you are able to see the screen. I would encourage you to take a look at those. At this point, I would like, if there's anyone who wants to raise your hand or submit a question through chat, and then in a moment, I'm gonna give the ability for those who are just on the phone and not viewing the screen through Zoom to be able to unmute themselves. So because I haven't done this before, I don't want it to get too crazy with folks talking over themselves. So I'm gonna try to give people the opportunity again to raise their hand or submit through chat before I release the abilities to everyone. Okay. I do not see more questions coming in at this point, so I'm going to go ahead and allow participants to unmute themselves. So if you would like to ask a question and you are currently just participating via phone, you should be able to just unmute your phone line as you normally would, and it should pop up for me if you wouldn't mind just giving your first name and the question, and then we will do our best to answer it. All right, so I have a question that has come in via chat. If we opt out now and change our minds later, can we rezone free later? So at this point, our intentions are that as long as you notify us by the end of September, there will not be any fee. It would be up to council, most likely, if you notify us before the end of the year. But because we have to have the proposed map to council for their approval to take effect in 2021, Anyone who does not submit the opt-out form by the end of September would have to go through the standard process. Now, that is the current plan, because there's really no good way to say, you know, if you do it in the next 6 months, then we'll allow it. But that is something that we have not discussed at length. So I would encourage you to, again, call us so that we can discuss it with you and determine the pros and cons. But my plan would be, after we do this, it would really be this standard process moving forward. So sorry, I believe it said Donna, apologize. That probably wasn't quite the answer you wanted, but at this point, that's the plan. We have a question from Kathy. Wondering if some of the commercial area homes on Lincoln by the school have been converted to R2 or R3 in other area or in other similar areas. Kathy, let me look real quick. Let's see, we can try to look by address. So you hopefully can see my screen. I'm going to do a search for Lincoln. Contains, and this is going to give us all of the Lincoln Street properties. So that would be West Lincoln, would be by the school. And you can see currently there are not many changes, but you can see a couple were changed from C2 general commercial, or C2 to C3. But it looks like the majority of those are currently already R3.
Mayor, I can speak.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think there's 200 results, I believe. I can speak to, we changed approximately 500 to 600 properties from commercial to residential. And so the criteria for that was, if it's a single family home, if it's being taxed and used as a single family home and it's zoned commercial, we proposed to rezone it to the proper sized residential lot. So I do know that we have converted a lot, especially around downtown. And Kathy, when you look at the map tomorrow, look at the current map and you'll see a giant ring of commercial around the downtown. That giant ring of commercial is mostly residential. So, you know, so the rule of thumb was, if it's used as residential and it's zoned commercial, we did rezone it to residential. And by Lincoln School, there's quite a bit of that.
Awesome.
Oh, good. Good to know somebody can unmute themselves. That makes me feel better.
Well, that was a specific question because I know we need more residential areas, and I've always wondered why it was marked commercial in those areas. That's awesome.
Well, perfect. Thanks for the question, Kathy.
Thank you.
All right, we are continuing to take questions for a little while longer. So a question from D. Howard. So if we do nothing, the change will be no cost to the homeowner. That is correct. If you keep the proposed at this point, you don't have to do anything. There is no cost. Council will be voting on the changes later this year, and then it will take effect in 2021. Question from Tina. I live on South Blanchard Street. Zoning would change from R1 to R3. It looks like the question got cut off. But again, going from R1 to R3, oh, here we go. Tina got the rest of the question. Is there any way that the road can be moved or pushed back towards my house in the future with setbacks? No. No, we still have to maintain our right-of-way space, as well as the appropriate distance away from your homes. And as you're aware, Blanchard Street is already a pretty tight corridor, so we would not be able to extend that road at all, expand it widthwise. All right, have another question. Are you concerned that rezoning will change the character of existing neighborhoods, like the large homes on South Main Street, from being owner-operated to tenant-occupied, as they are converted to duplexes and triplexes? Won't this result in heightened population density, more traffic, less parking? So again, So R1s and R2s, which are the large lot and medium lot, do not allow for duplexes and triplexes. In R3, which is what the majority of these, or some of these are being changed to, is that small lot residential. In that zoning classification, duplexes and triplexes are a conditional use, and therefore they are not permitted unless they are given an exemption from City Planning Commission. And so, no, we're not concerned about it compromising the integrity of our older neighborhoods, because we still want to meet the integrity of those neighborhoods. And so those would only be allowed on specific situations where duplexes and triplexes are already around and where it would make more sense. So going from, if you're in the R1, R2, or R3, then duplexes and triplexes are still not allowed except for in R3 as a conditional use. That would have to be an R4 classification, and we are not currently, and Matt, please correct me if I'm wrong, we are not changing any properties to R4 that are not already a duplex or triplex. We are not saying this property should be a duplex or triplex. So hopefully that makes sense.
Just to add to that,
Yeah.
the South Main neighborhood, the average lot sizes come out to the R2 district. So most of that area is going from R1 to R2, and that does not permit any more duplexes than are already there.
Perfect. I see that an individual who is labeled as Reinhardt has unmuted themselves. Would you like to ask a question?
Yes, well, we have the choice of opting out. Why would someone opt out if this is supposed to be to our advantage?
Well, that is exactly what we were thinking, but we always want to give people their choice because it's their property.
Okay.
Other questions? We'll give everybody a little time. Again, if you are on the phone or on Zoom and you may unmute yourself, or if you're having issues, you can submit a question via chat. As well as if you think of something after this and have questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to call Hancock Regional Planning Commission, email hrpc@finleyohio.com, Finley, Ohio, all spelled out, or email mayor@finleyohio.com. We're happy to answer your questions. We are doing this because we think it's of benefit to each and every one of you, but certainly if you feel differently, we want to hear that concern, and we are happy to work with you to provide the opt-out form, which is available on our website. I also provided the link to it in the chat, so you can print that off and scan it into us or mail it into us, and that is not a problem. Again, no cost for this change, no cost to opt out. Hopefully it is beneficial.
Mayor, it looks like Welton is unmuted if they have a question.
Oh, it looks like they muted again. So someone asked, where is the breakdown of R1 and R2 on the website? So I will show you, it's finleyohio.com, and then we actually currently have, let me see. If you go to the banner where it says zoning map update opt-out form, that takes you to the zoning map update parcel search opt-out form, as well as information, a summary of the residential setback requirements. Oh, Richard found it, great. All right, and Welton says the mic is not working. You'd like to submit a question here, we'd be happy to address it. Sorry, your mic's not working. I know that's frustrating. All right, well, Welton said she will give you a call, Matt, to discuss concerns or questions.
Good.
All right, well, that is the end of our presentation. We will continue to stay on the line for the next 10-15 minutes. If anyone has questions, we're happy to answer them. Again, this recording will also be put on our website tomorrow. And if you have specific questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Please help educate your neighbors and friends. We're happy to answer questions. Please have folks call us. And hopefully this was beneficial. If you have feedback on how this worked, please let us know. It's our first time doing this, so hopefully overall your experience was pleasant, but we would certainly appreciate any feedback, and we would love to see your smiling faces in person, but that is just not the times we're in right now. All right, well, I'll put my jazz music on real nice and quiet in the background if I can find it again. We appreciate everybody tuning in and hope you have a safe and enjoyable evening. Take in the warm weather while you can. It'll probably soon be gone.